Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us for this, what I hope will be an awesome discussion about how to make PLG work well for sales. And I'm really excited to share this, this with Aurel, who's handling the channel partnerships at Visita and previously led their sales efforts for about 5 years here. So we've got a real leader who understands the PLG space. Aurel, anything you want to add there? Anything I missed?
Well, no, you pretty much covered everything. It's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me, David, and I'm excited to start chatting about stuff.
Amazing. And as well with us is Simon, who's heading up who's BDR at HubSpot. Is really going to be able to give us the perspective of an actual operator at probably one of the best product-led growth companies out there. Simon, welcome.
Cheers. Thanks for having me. Yeah, likewise. I think you covered everything there, but looking forward to getting into it.
Okay, amazing. So everybody, just the reason I think why we're talking so much about product-led growth is that it's super exciting in the world of SaaS. As you've noticed, a lot of SaaS companies already building themselves to be product-led growth. Recently, we had the big news with Figma being acquired for $20 billion. What a classic product-led growth company, and probably a great sign that this is a movement that's here to stay. The question is, where does that leave salespeople? I think a lot of people are misreading the situation and wondering, hey, can we, skip the part where sales gets involved and just go straight from user to acquirer and buyer? And we've noticed, it's about 58% of SaaS companies now are deploying a PLG motion or looking to deploy a PLG motion. So we hope it could be ready timely to have this discussion. At Whistle, obviously, we work with and support a number of different PLG companies. So I'll hopefully can give you a bit more of a generalist perspective. But I'm excited to defer to both Aurel and to Simon to give a more kind of focused perspective. So let's start by just sharing a couple of things here. I'm just going to share my screen for everybody. Okay. All right, that's us. You've seen us. In terms of today's conversation, so we're going to hopefully dive really deep around 3 key topics. One is knowing your buyer. So how do we really make sure that we're selling to the right buyers, that we've really spending our efforts on the users that are most likely to buy? And we'll go through some ideas in depth. Number 2, talk about your story and your product. So how do you make sure that we're connecting with buyers with the right plan for them? How do we tell that right story to engage them? And thirdly, we'll talk about systems. How do we ensure that we're measuring the right things and making the right decisions? And each of those, we'd say, are kind of the 3 key ingredients to getting product-led growth right from the sales perspective. Let's start with knowing your buyer. So, how do we ensure that we're selling to the right buyers? I think there's kind of 4 key elements here, and I'd love to hear both from yourselves, Simon and Aurel. Let's start with personalization. So just if you look at, I guess, your experience, Aurel, I'll start with you at Visita. How does personalization kind of play into that whole interaction when it comes to engaging with users and converting them into buyers?
Right. So first, for the viewers who don't know Visita and its product, so Visita is an all-in-one business management software designed for small businesses, mainly service providers. And because we work with a lot of different industries, so personalization is very big because we need to kind of speak their language. So the same messaging may not work for a personal trainer versus a lawyer, for example. So once a user signs up to Visita for a trial account, we try to gather as much as relevant information so we can personalize the messaging. So if they're a personal trainer, would focus on speaking about trainees and not patients, for example. So really to try and speak their language and make sure that the messaging is relevant for their industry. This is one important thing. Then the second thing is, and I see it's already written there, so I'll just share a little bit on this. I hope you won't be mad. But we're understand what their intent is, and also provide them with solutions to what is important for them. If it's a CRM, if it's a scheduling tool, if it's all of the above. And I'm sure we'll touch on this a little bit more, but really the main thing is really to try and speak their language, to try and make them feel like we know their industry, because we do, obviously, but not to give them a feeling that it's a general message that all of our client gets. That's the main big point.
So, Aurel, just on that first point about personalization, I mean, when do you just on a practical level, does this mean that you guys have kind of separate templates ready to go based on the user type? Like how do you make that work?
So yeah, we're really we have, like you mentioned, we have different templates for different industries. We have 8 or 9, I don't remember exactly, different templates for industries, the main industries that we work with, and we have the drip campaign is exactly structured for every industry. So we make sure that all the email templates are relevant for their industries. Different messaging. We have a 14-day free trial, so we'll make sure that we have different touch points and different offering on every template, for example.
And I've just got a message now that apparently the first few minutes of this didn't load. So just to recap, everybody, we're sitting here with Aurel, who's Director of Channel Partnerships at VCita, previously led the sales team, VCita business management platform for small businesses. Hope I'm doing that justice, Aurel. And Simon is a BDR at HubSpot. You should know HubSpot by now, but one of the leading CRMs out there and one of the OGs of product-led growth. How's that one, Simon? Good summary?
Yeah, nice one. I'd say you hit the nail on the head there. Yeah.
Okay, well, we had practice about a couple of minutes ago, David. So.
Yeah, exactly. Third time's the charm, guys. So, okay, let's come back to personalization. So, Simon, obviously, with HubSpot, you have a lot of people signing up. I mean, and I think we'll talk about something that Aurel mentioned as well in terms of trial periods or not trial periods. Obviously, with HubSpot, you can sign up for free, and use it for free, and keep using it for free. How do you guys distinguish and just make that more personal? What does that look like when a user signs up to HubSpot? What are some of the ways that you're personalizing that approach, or even gauging their intent going in?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's something that really is hit home with and really kind of drilled into us as BDRs in HubSpot, is that personalized approach. I think so many people, particularly in sales leadership positions, are blasted, with these kind of unpersonalized generic emails a lot of the time. So it's really important to make yourself stand out, do your research before sending an email, and make sure that the approach is, as you say, personalized. So we use sequences quite a lot in HubSpot, which are basically kind of automated sales outbound emails, which kind of link in with your task management system to make sure you can follow up and make sure that you can add in calls or LinkedIn requests and stuff like that in the middle of it. So they're quite useful across the board, and it really comes down to then doing the individual research before actually making the outreach itself. So whether it be finding a good trigger event, if someone's just raised funding, if somebody has just changed role, and just even doing that 30 seconds before reaching out, I think it's received quite well in comparison to the same email without that one line of differentiation. So it's something that is probably quite easy to do and not a lot of people do, but makes a big difference when doing it at scale.
And just to make this even more practical, yes, go for it, Aurel.
No, I just wanted to say that the sequence is a great feature that HubSpot provides. We also use it quite often with our leads.
Awesome. Just in terms of like automating communications.
Yeah.
Okay. Amazing. And just in terms of the research, so we can kind of drill down and make this really practical for people. What are some of the ways that Simon, that your team goes about doing that kind of research, just to kind of know who they're speaking to? Is it just a Google search? Are there any databases that you guys are using? Are there any tools inside of HubSpot that you're using? Like, what is it that helps you do that?
Yeah, like you can set up different alerts depending on the accounts you're going after, whether it be larger maybe target accounts, or whether it be smaller, more more industry specific accounts. But like LinkedIn is probably the biggest area to do your research and make it a more personalized approach. Like it integrates nicely with HubSpot once you have the Sales Pro subscription. So works quite well there to have a good understanding of what the buyer looks like or the potential prospect looks like when creating that. So hopping onto their LinkedIn profile, looking at recent posts, seeing if there's any trigger events happening within the company, what they're speaking about recently, and just finding that good hook to have a reason for them to want to speak to you, particularly if you're reaching out like cold. So as I said previously, whether it be recent funding, change job, they're looking to go in a different direction, they've just announced something as a company, and making that the reason that they need to speak to you for your specific service, and quite making a legitimate case for that. And again, it's because it's personalized is why they will probably respond favorably to it, rather than just blasting them the same generic outreach, same product, but because the outreach isn't personalized and it looks like you haven't put in any effort, they'd be less likely to speak to you, I believe.
Or okay, that makes a lot of sense. And obviously LinkedIn's a powerful community for finding buyers. Orel, on your side, I mean, would you say that a lot of your users and customers have an active presence on LinkedIn or online? If so, then how do you guys do that? Yeah,
it depends on the industry. We're not really targeting them on LinkedIn because we have a lot of inbound traffic. We have 2,000-3,000 inbound leads every month. So we have plenty of traffic there. So we don't really message them through LinkedIn because personal trainers, lawyers, accountants, they don't really go on LinkedIn too much. But we do have some industries like coaching, for an example. So if we can get a hold of those, so we'll definitely try on LinkedIn. Marketing agencies. So it really depends on the industry. I would say most of our communication goes through HubSpot, actually, and phone calls, of course.
Okay, amazing. And so just before we go into the outreach, one more question for you on the approach. I mean, it sounds like there's probably a different pace. I'm just imagining, when you've got like a 14-day trial versus a lifetime free option where you can upgrade from there. How does that affect the way you guys kind of go after your leads? I mean, I think Orel, from your side, how do you make sure the team are like ready, focused, and ready, to tackle them? Is there a prioritization or an order of operations there?
Yeah, so we have a few properties in HubSpot that kind of indicates the tier of the lead or the scoring of the lead. So we use lead scoring in HubSpot as well. And if we see that it's a high tier lead, so obviously we'll give them more attention and we'll make more attempts to contact them. But like you mentioned, because we have a 14-day free trial, so we would usually try and get a hold of them during the trial. And as time goes by, obviously, we don't want them to forget, or kind of push it to the side. So we'll give them, a day or two to try and play around with the trial, let them experience the software, because we have about 65% of our paying customers are upgrading on their own. So they don't even talk to sales before they upgrade. But obviously our intent is to talk to them before that. For several reasons. We want to make sure they're on the right subscription plan. We want to make sure that they know how to start operating the software if they have any questions, so they get a good start and a good experience. If there's any feature that they're missing and they can't find it on the software, so obviously the sales rep will walk them through that. So like I said, we will want to give them like a day or two to test the software and then reach out to them, see if they have any questions. And if there's something we can help them with. We do also have triggers that kind of show us when a high intent lead, if they clicked on the upgrade page but they didn't upgrade, so we would give them a call because maybe there was something wrong. We don't want to lose the lead, so we have a Slack notification that pops up each time somebody clicked on the upgrade page, for an example. It's a key event pretty much for us. So we would give them a call or send them an email if they don't answer. But we would really try to focus our outreach on the 14 days. At the end of the 14 days, obviously, we'll make the final attempt, let them know that the trial ended, and if there's anything else that we can help them with or that they couldn't find during the trial or struggled with. So we're here to help. And yeah, that's
Orel, just on that, like in HubSpot, it's kind of big for us, obviously, as BDRs across any industry. They're based on setting up meetings for their account executive and trying to progress the conversation. But just what you were saying in terms of like helping them, like we're kind of trying to position ourselves as David was saying, when you have a free product for lifetime and you can give potentially an open or free trial as well. You're trying to be more of a concierge as a BDR rather than a salesperson. So it's really, you approach the conversation by trying to bring value to them and trying to help them through the product, rather than saying, okay, look, do you want to buy? Let's go, let's get you set up. Bang, 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 bang. It's really like positioning the conversation as this is coaching, this is like a consulting call, which it is. And then if at the end of it, the needs of the free product, aren't going to be sufficient to help with your scale, then that's where you would upgrade. And it's kind of like you're helping them along the journey rather than shoving it to them and trying to take their money off them straight away. Do you find that as well, or what's your kind of thoughts on it?
You nailed it. Like our approach, we're not aggressive salespeople. We also look at ourselves as consultants. We actually did a transition back in 2019 to make sure that we demonstrate every workaround that we have in the product to make sure that the client doesn't experience it after they buy, and then they get a bad experience and churn. And what it showed us, it actually increased in MRR eventually, even that we got less sales because we were selling less aggressively. We actually saw an increase in MRR, which was amazing, and a decrease in churn, and less overhead for the customer success and support teams that didn't have to handle with a lot of questions. So we really like to look at ourselves as consultants and trying to understand the pain of the client. So our SDRs will reach out and see if the client experienced any they struggle with the trial for whatever reason, they couldn't find anything, like what's the main intent that brought them to Visita, and then hear what they were looking for. And if this is something that we can provide, they would offer them to watch a personalized product demo for their industry, that our sales executives will show them a demo account from their industry and show them how the software can work, and actually walk them through and show them the solution that they were looking for in the first place, pretty much. And then if the client decides, yes, this is what I was looking for, it's a much better experience than just trying to sell them, in a different or more aggressive way. We can do that, but experience it yourself. Like, let me show you how it works first, and then you make the decision if this is something that is relevant for you or not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I'm assuming that also comes down to trust. I mean, one of the things that we've seen with the different companies that we support is even when we don't get the sale, the feedback from the users is super positive. So we often see emails come back to the SDR saying, hey, really appreciated the time, the 15 minutes in the walk through the platform, and you guys are amazing. And then later that person ends up upgrading themselves, or even just referring others, because it's usually a good sign of your ability to support customers if you're already engaging in those conversations with people that aren't paying yet. Do you see similar? Do you see kind of that carry with some sort of, even when they're not buying, some sort of positive sentiment that, hey, I really appreciated you, trying to help me either way?
Yeah, for sure. I think once you start the conversation in a positive manner and you approach it, like I said, with that helpful mindset rather than a salesy approach, I think people are a lot more receptive to it. But it does help in terms of the way you're outreaching. Cold outreach is rarely appreciated, I think. But I think that's where the inbound strategy comes in, where because you're being so helpfully giving away a free product, you're giving away lots of helpful content across the board. It helps with the brand, across when you're looking to start a conversation. And then look, even if it isn't the right time, or they're only browsing, or they just want to learn, then when it's time, it's not it's not if, but when. When it becomes time for them to have a need for software, CRM, marketing automation, they'll think positively around your brand, and then they'll be ready to kind of come back to you, and maybe even get back in touch with you personally because they enjoyed the experience in the first place.
I would also assume, I mean, given the thousands of leads that both of your companies generate, there's such a need to kind of segment them. And I don't know, Aurel, if you mind me kind of sliding to the next slide and just giving us like a bit of an example of what that looks like in real life on HubSpot, and kind of how you guys, I guess, use the system to really segment that lead and reach out appropriately.
Right. So in the picture here, you can see a lead that actually upgraded by themselves. You can see the lead status is DIY upgrade. It means that they went on the platform and upgraded themselves. They upgraded to a low tier plan. And we can see the lead score is 31 and the lead score tier is mid tier. And then their intent is pretty long. So they chose a few modules that are a few features that we offer. So for me as an SDR, reaching out to this lead, I know what interests them, and I know they upgraded to a lower tier. So it's really easy for me to start the conversation with what they were looking for and make sure that they got everything that they needed. But if I know that they're on a low tier plan, and I know that one of the features that they chose in the intent isn't available in the subscription they chose, so it's easy for me to kind of ask them, okay, so I see that, for example, you chose promotions. Promotions is available on our premium package. Is this something that you care about? Like, is this like a main intent for you? How are you doing promotions today? Kind of ask them how they do it, and then if it's important for them, so I know that they need to upgrade, so I would offer them to schedule a product demo with one of the sales executives to show them how it actually works. And also the how we kind of structure the lead scoring and how we score each lead. It's pretty much based on their industry, number of staff members, their intent is also part of that, the marketing channel they came from. So we take all this into consideration and we put it into the lead scoring system, which really helps us to identify higher, more qualified leads that has more potential to converting.
Amazing. So if I could just summarize, I guess, this first section out of 3 about knowing your buyer, right? We've spoken about the need for personalization and to try and make sure that even the communications reflect with who you're speaking with, right? Based on their use case, based on the type of business they're at. And that sounds applicable both in terms of HubSpot, right? And your users, as well as BC and your users. And we spoke about intent, right? What are some of the key tools or features that they're looking for that we can refer to? We spoke about key events that could signify, a need for a sales conversation. It could be that they're looking at a specific page, like a pricing page. It could be that their trial is coming to an end. It could be that they've raised a round of funding. And then, we've just talked a little bit about segmentation to ensure that the teams are focusing their time and effort, which is expensive, on the users that have the most potential to become customers. So let's take it the next layer down and let's talk about the story and the product, because I'm assuming that a key part of this approach, and Simon, you mentioned that kind of concierge approach with your buyers. I'm assuming there's a kind of a few key elements here that go into making this work. Simon, from your side, as someone who lives this and breathes this every day, on the ground, talking to prospects, what does that look like? What are some, can you walk us through almost like a day in the life? How do you go about approaching, those prospective clients and kind of winning them over to a paid version?
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways of kind of segmenting what's, what way to reach out. And like, you've got your high interest, high fit accounts that'd probably be the guys who really want to talk to you, and they'd probably skip the BDR side of things and go straight to the rep, and they'll kind of go down the sales funnel that way. And then you've got, in another sense, you've got your lower interest but really high fit accounts. They look really good for your product, but they haven't maybe heard of you, and you really want to get after them. So that's where you want to spend a lot of your time as a BDR. Then as well as that, you've got, you say, high interest, but they're a low fit accounts. They're probably more on the time wasting side. So it's just about segmenting your day across the board there and making sure that you're spending your time in the right areas. And then in terms of reaching out, you kind of touched on a few points there, David, around the automation that HubSpot gives you. And particularly around, like you said, when someone looks at the pricing page, we're automated to get a ping, and it's quite easy to be, you'd be surprised how many people with that workflow alone are absolutely shocked at the power of the system, where I'm at my computer all day anyway, answering emails on the phone. I get a prompt to say somebody is on the pricing page. I hop on the phone straight away, give them the call, and they're literally on HubSpot, or they're on the product, looking at the pricing, and I can just talk them through it. Any questions they have, again, concierge approach, and then it's a really easy way to continue the conversation. Hey, I know you're checking it out. Can I help you with anything? Sure. Would you like to speak to a product expert? Great. Let's progress that conversation. When are you free? We can book in some time. We can have a demonstration. What would you like to see? So stuff like that. HubSpot, again, the inbound strategy, people downloading content, looking at the pricing page, all of those workflows are working to make the SDR, BDR life a lot easier, and helping the AE to move stuff along the funnel. So that's kind of one of the really, really big benefits of having a system which is so powerful.
We had a question come in. I'd love to hear your take on this. When you talk about that approach, what channels do you guys find work best for you when you're reaching out to those leads? I know HubSpot can allow you to do pretty much hit all of them, but are there any in particular that you guys find generate the highest level of responses?
Me personally, I really like chat. We also use HubSpot chat on our pricing page. So it's not like very invasive where, I'm on the upgrade page and I get a call right away. Like, oh, I saw you're on the upgrade page, and like, are you stalking me or anything? Like, I prefer basically to have a chat that is a little bit less invasive, to kind of see if the client is interested in getting assistance, if they have any questions about different plans or features that we can help them with. We also have the bot offering them to schedule a demo if it's off hours, so we're not missing any opportunities. So for those, we have the chat, and if we see that they don't reply to the chat, so we'll give them a call like a day after or a few hours after that. Like we don't want to get them to fear from us, like stalking approach.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay,
I think it depends. I think it depends on the size of the product or the different industry you're in. It's probably a different answer for each. But for HubSpot, like we love the phones here. Like as BDRs, given the segment we're in, I think the phone is probably king in terms of getting a quick answer. Or as a BDR, it's really important to get a quick no, so there's no time wasting involved. You can move on to the next one and kind of keep opportunities alive. And then email is probably second to that in terms of outreach, but coming back to it, it's got to be personalized no matter what you're doing. So using tools like Vidyard, really good. We use them a lot. LinkedIn as well. Voice notes have been successful elsewhere. Different people like different forms. I think it really doesn't matter. I'd say phone is king, and then outside of that, it's got to be personalized no matter what channel you're using. And I think that's probably the best way to go.
There was someone asked about SMS. There was a trend at some point, I don't know if it's still a trend, where people were already pushing kind of SMS outreach in the B2B space. I was just curious what your guys' take is on that.
We use SMS all the time, especially after registration for a trial account. And also after the first call attempt. Like if the client didn't answer the first call attempt, we'll send them an SMS. Hey, this is Aurel with Visita. I noticed you started a trial with us recently. I'll be happy to discuss this further. Let me know when's a good time to chat. Like something like this. We use SMS quite a lot.
And I think WhatsApp as well, dependent region specific. Like in Israel is pretty big. That kind of specific area, but depends. But it can definitely be beneficial.
Well, we do get a lot of responses from the text messaging. Like we see many people reply to that more than emails.
Why do you think that is, Aurel? It's just because you're meeting them where they are?
I think it depends on I guess the age of the client. Some of them are more responsive to text messages versus emails. I know my dad, for an example, who's almost 70 years old, he would probably not reply to an email. He owns a business, but he will definitely reply to a text message because he knows how to. So I think that has a lot to do with it.
Awesome. So in the end, you've got to kind of meet them where they're at. with a message that's relevant. What about like virality and social proof? We've all kind of touched on LinkedIn. One of the things that I love about LinkedIn, when you sign up to Sales Navigator, on the actual kind of purchase page, it actually shows you who in your network is on that plan. And I think that is like that little extra push. It's such a nice feature and such a nice touch. How do you use things like social proof or virality to kind of encourage people to either, bring others to the platform or just feel confident about trusting you, at vCETA with it, business management, at HubSpot with basically their single source of truth? What are some of the things that, both of you kind of rely on?
I think in HubSpot, it's probably just even the ease of use of a product and how easy it is for, if you were to start out on the free product, how easy it is to add somebody else to it. Just to test it out, if you're only testing the water, just to show them what it looks like, is probably the best for us. And like, it's product-led growth at the core of it. Having a good product, it kind of sells itself in terms of that way of proving its value to the potential prospect and allowing others to get part of it as well. So it's removing the barriers there to allow as many people have eyes on the product as possible, and hopefully that shows the value there too.
Yeah, with vCETA, because we work with different industries and small businesses, they many of them live in their communities for their industries, so a lot of word of mouth is the way that we're getting clients. Like we see many signups that are just saying, yeah, I heard from a colleague of mine that also runs a small business that uses vCETA and was very happy about it. So we try to live in those communities. We try to somehow penetrate those communities and spread the word on how easy it is to use vCETA and how it brings value to a small business owner. Save them a lot of time. Like, we really talk to their pain points because we know what they experience on a day-to-day basis, and we really try to share this with the communities.
Okay, amazing. And just to interrupt, I've got a question here. Simon, question for you. When somebody's on the pricing page, technically, how does HubSpot ensure that you can see that? What tool are they using, or what's the reporting function? Or is this a native feature?
Sure. Yes. So the beauty of HubSpot, really, particularly in sales, is that like because it's so expansive and it can integrate with so many other tools, you're on HubSpot for the majority of your day. There's no real need to leave and come back. But to answer the question directly, you'll get a notification on your HubSpot homepage that will also be integrated with your messaging tool. We use Slack in HubSpot, so there's quite a nice integration there. So you'll get a pop in Slack just to say, hey, someone on the pricing page. And if that's not enough, you can also set it up so that your email will get just a quick ping to say this contact. It'll send the link to the HubSpot page for them, so you can easily hop on and just say this contact is here. So it's probably a triple threat to make sure it doesn't go through, but you can set it up to make sure you're not going to miss those things. We call them high intent non-qualified leads, so we call them hinkles. So there's a number of them, depending on what page they're on or what action they're performing. That we can get in there early while they're still active, while they're still supposedly hot or checking out HubSpot. Just to, again, concierge approach and just make sure that they have everything they need and see if they need any further help.
Coming back to that whole concierge analogy, right? That hotel analogy. When you leave the hotel, you're usually offered to sign the guest book, right? Provide some feedback. Are there any feedback loops that you ask for from buyers on that sales experience? Do you ever, run any sorts of surveys, questions, even just emails to check in? Is that something that either of you have either done or seen done before?
Simon, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So it's part of our service hub, really, is where that kind of kicks in, and that after sales service. And where our customer success team really kicks into gear, and one of the ways we can kind of run with the product as well. So just for anyone who's not familiar, we've got our sales hub, which is kind of, as it says in the tin, where the sales team run it. We've got our marketing hub, which is kind of in the background, working away in the nurturing phase and trying to get stuff over to sales. And then once it closes, that's where our customer service hub kicks in, and our customer success team kind of runs there to help with, if you're having any problems, tickets, live chat. And in conjunction with that, you can run customer surveys and find out like NPS scores, stuff like that. So it's quite easy to use once the after sales process kicks into gear. And it's something we really kind of push for, because it's such an added benefit to have everything in your organization on the one platform, to have your sales be very easily able to be prompted by marketing, or for instance, if somebody's not happy or if they're really happy and they want to upgrade, to have your success team very easily able to flag that with sales and pass the lead over really quickly. So it's really seamless and there's no integrations required. It's a native platform. So it's definitely something we do in terms of getting the feedback. It's just a different department, but because we're on the same hymn sheet, it's very easy to let one or the other know what's happening with a specific prospect or customer.
Yeah, so just to add to what Simon said, we also do NPS scores, and it helps us on two different areas. One, we're actually getting more sales using that, because sometimes we'll get a review or a score saying that a feature wasn't there, and it's actually there. So we will reach out and say, hey Simon, I saw that you gave us an NPS score saying you couldn't find this feature. I would love to show you how you can do that. And then if there is a score that mentioned anything about the product, we'll add that to the feature request list as a request, and we actually have our product team either prioritize a feature that has more requests, that some of them come from the NPS score.
I think that's such an interesting point, in that one of the key things here with PLG is that anyone can sign up and anyone can leave, pretty much, right? And so the selling process doesn't really stop. And even once they've signed up, there's often upsells and cross sells and all sorts of interesting things that can happen. And so it does make sense that you have those kind of pieces in play to make sure that obviously that product is aligned with what the users are needing and requesting, and that they're happy and that they're enjoying, and that you've got that feedback. Okay, so let's move to the third piece of this puzzle, which is all about systems. Right. So with just the volume of users coming in, coming out, engaging, on trials, leaving trials, I would imagine, you'd need some pretty robust reporting and ways to kind of track all of that. So, Aurel, I guess I'll ask you first. What does that look like on your side? What are some of the key reports that you have to look at that whole kind of sales motion? And make the critical decisions, that need to be made to improve the conversions?
So obviously we use a lot of reports. Some of them are in HubSpot, some of them are on a different system. That really helps us identify, or obviously what we're doing wrong, what we're good at. For an example, we mentioned, when do we call a lead that signed up recently? So in the past, we saw that calling them within minutes after they sign up didn't necessarily got us higher conversion. We got a lot of replies saying, "Oh, I just signed up. Let me test the software." So we actually changed that, because we saw that the timing that we call doesn't, like, if it's minutes after registration, didn't really increase the conversion. Then we'll obviously, when it comes to SDRs, we'll see how many leads were grabbed by each SDR. We have a bucket of leads that every new lead goes into, and then the SDRs just go and take them from the bucket. So we'll see how many leads were touched by each SDR and what was their conversion from a touch, which is either a call or an email, to a conversation, and then from conversation to a scheduled demo. And then for the sales executives, we'll look at the conversion rate from a meeting, obviously, to a converted lead. Those are like the main ones. But then we're also looking at upsell. We're seeing how many upsells we were able to do from each lead, and separate those by marketing channels, by industries. So there are a lot of filters that we use to kind of identify where we can do better. And we actually saw that once we had a dedicated person for an industry, their conversion rate was higher. So that really helped us in providing more value to the clients, because we had a dedicated rep for one industry. So he or she would know their industry better, would speak their language, and obviously their conversion rate was a lot higher than other salespeople that spoke with those industries. So I would say those are the main big ones. Obviously, we have a lot of reports, so I can go on and on, but I would say those are the main important ones.
So you start to kind of get specialists, I guess, in different kind of key industries there, and they can already start referring, I'm assuming, to typical pain points and typical, concerns that come up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For an example, they would know the competitor in this industry much better because they would hear about businesses using one competitor or another. So they would know already how Visita can provide more value in different areas. They would know what are the missing features with the competitors. They would know their day-to-day of the business that they're talking to. So they would know what their pain points before they even mention those. And they would know how to create the pain points as well. Things that, they hear from a different client and they ask the other client, like, so are you experiencing this pain point as well? And they would say, yeah, actually I am. And that also gets them to trust the sales rep much more than, if they wouldn't bring this stuff. So yeah, it's definitely helpful.
Simon, on your side of it, does HubSpot kind of divide it up that way? Do you have I know there's territorial focuses, but are there focuses as well in terms of the business sizes or types or the titles that come through?
Yeah. So it is. It's quite well split up in terms of that section. But reporting such a kind of a wide topic in general, we use it. Managers love it because it gives such an accountability across what their team is doing, particularly when you've got sales. It's very metric driven, and how much activity you've completed throughout the day, and you can see very easily in terms of a forecast or how you're tracking across and trying to get to that goal or the quota at the end of the month. So that's probably one aspect. But one thing I really like about it is the reporting aspect of HubSpot, because it's so powerful. It really streamlines the approach for the reps. So when it's set up properly, you really know exactly what you've got to get through in the day, so that you don't have to spend a huge amount of time on admin because it's already built in for you. And as well as that, it kind of gives the sense. One thing I really found when I started using the system at first was how gamified it made it feel. Then once the reporting structure is in place, and you've literally got to get through a certain number of activities throughout the day. It's kind of like a to-do list. And once that's done, hopefully it churns it out at the end. And again, you're put in a leaderboard against your other sales reps. So it's quite a competitive nature. But I suppose that's why we're in sales across the board. But the reporting feature kind of makes it a lot easier to see what has to be done and where I'm stacking up against the competition, how I'm doing against myself in terms of my monthly targets. So it's quite a nice way to work.
And I think that's a key part. A lot of people look at reports as something that's static and boring. Even saying the word sometimes is boring. But if you're using it dynamically to encourage the right types of behaviors, and if you're gamifying those activities, it really leads to a lot of, of fun, firstly in the sales side, but also great results that come with it. I'm assuming that it sometimes happens that a certain sales rep or SDR or BDR is stuck. They're speaking to somebody, they're not quite sure what to do. What are some of the ways that your teams kind of communicate if they're live on a call or if they're running a demonstration? Do you have any sort of quick internal comms that works well at both of your companies for collaboration and just ensuring that they're getting the answers they need?
So I feel like since COVID, this really has changed because while we were in the office, it was so easy, and I would prompt my sales reps to put somebody on hold and be like, "Let me look into that for you real quick," and get back to them within seconds with an answer, because we were all in the office, and they can either ask their colleague or myself or any other manager to get an answer right away. And it's much better than let me get back to you with an email after that. Give them an answer right away. So we obviously use Slack to communicate, WhatsApp. Sometimes I would tell my reps, if it's a big client or something important that's a deal breaker, just put them on hold, give me a call if we're working from home that day. My approach is always to try to get an answer during the call and not after the call, because then you can get to the decision much faster. But yeah, we'll try to use any method possible to communicate, mostly Slack.
Yeah, I think we're quite similar as well in that respect. But like, I suppose in terms of rather than like outside of an instant communication with somebody, like when we're talking about say potentially a larger deal or any deal at hand, like I think the beauty of it is that HubSpot can give you the transparency over what's happening with each and every deal, each and every client or customer or prospect, on their individual contact record and the company as a whole. So like, for instance, if I was running a sales cycle and my manager was unsure about my forecast, that I'd kind of spoken to them, they could easily hop in and see what was actually happening, what the last form of communication was, and it's quite transparent in that way. Would you agree with that, Arel, or what's your kind of thoughts on the transparency of the system when running a deal like that?
Can you say the question again? I kind of missed it.
Like just in terms of the transparency of the system in general, like so that everyone kind of has like you said, that apart from the old cliche, like the single source of truth of what's happening with every client, that it makes the communication channels a little bit easier because people are all on the same wavelength. Yeah.
So obviously we also use HubSpot, which I'm sure you guys also use HubSpot. So yeah, everything is documented in every deal. Once we get a client on the phone on a demo, so everything is documented, and it's easy to also tag your colleagues or managers inside HubSpot to kind of provide an answer on that deal specifically. Everything is also recorded, so there's easy access to the recording through HubSpot as well. Like Zoom recordings, which is a great feature for myself as a manager to kind of track. And we also use our system for sales training. But yeah, I think it's my approach is really to try and get the answer on the call, and not to leave things for an email later, especially if it's a decision-making question for the client.
100%.
I'm going to ask you both. I'm going to jump out of these slides and ask you both a question, just to kind of wrap up this great conversation. With this move to product-led growth, how do you see do you see the role of a SaaS salesperson changing? What are some of the kind of key things that you think the sales teams of 2030 are going to have to be really, really good at in comparison to where they're at today?
Did you say 2030?
Yeah. 8 years from today. I just thought of a round number, right? What are in the next, let's say, 5 years? What do you think would be some of the kind of the key things now with this move to kind of a more product-led solution? Anything that you think would stand out?
I think hopefully, yeah, I think hopefully it'll probably to be less salespeople would be made more redundant in the fact that you'll be pushing towards more of a touchless purchase, depending on the size of the product. But I think the one of the negatives within the industry at the moment is people make their decision based on if they have a bad experience with a salesperson, they'll associate that company with negative connotations, and they will refuse to use the product because they had an initial bad experience. Maybe for whatever reason it might have been, they weren't responsive, they weren't receptive, they tried for a week, they couldn't get a hold of someone. Okay, move on to the next one, we're never dealing with you again. And it's nothing to do with the product, regardless of if whatever competitors are going ahead of each other. You'd be surprised how many times in the day you could call someone and they say, no, we spoke to you 5 years ago, you weren't receptive then, we're never dealing with your company again. And it's a very people focused thing. So obviously you want to have a receptive salesperson at the end of the line every time, and that's probably why we're employed. Because otherwise, if people show solely on the product, the best companies would win out all the time. But unfortunately, it's not the case. But hopefully, that's kind of what would change between now and then, is that people would be making decisions solely on the basis of how good the product is, rather than on maybe how receptive or how good the salesperson is at the initial contact point.
In which case, that ties in with your whole concierge approach, right? Because again, the concierge is like, well, welcome to the hotel. There's a bar down the street that plays great music. If you want a good place to eat, go over here. And then, you don't have to necessarily kind of push a certain direction. Aurel, what's your take? What are some of the key skills we have to work on?
So we can all see that, as time goes by, the salespeople from, the 1990s boiler room type of salespeople, just using the phone are obviously almost are gone from this world. Product is definitely something that helps you make more sales. So I feel like 2030 would be a time where we would still need salespeople. I'm not thinking that we're going anywhere. I think that we're super important for even for a product-led growth company. Salespeople are still important, depending obviously on the complexity of the software. Simon, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not familiar with big organizations purchasing HubSpot for tens of thousands of dollars a year worth of software without talking to somebody before they purchase it. With Visita, yes, it's a more simple product. So yes, we do see a lot of people purchasing it, but then there's a lot of value for the human touch that kind of helps you relate to the company more than just to the software. You see that there's somebody behind the software, and I think this is something that will never go away. That once it happens, we'll probably all turn into robots. But I think it's very important that there's somebody behind the software that can actually give you the trust in the company that you need, because this is something that is humanized, that the process.
So if I can summarize today's deep dive, we spoke about a couple of key topics. Number one, know your buyer, right? Speak their language, try and really personalize your approach, try and reach out to them on the platform that they're responsive on, and at a time that's appropriate to them, right? You mentioned, Aurel, when people just sign up, maybe it's too soon, right? We've got trials coming up. Simon, you mentioned looking at the key events, like raises, things like that could prompt a fair reach out. Then we spoke about the story and the product, and really understanding how to approach them using things like social proof and virality, and just getting that feedback as well, and understanding that even once they've signed, they're not gone, right? They're still with you, and maybe you have to even try harder to keep them in upsell. Finally, we spoke about systems and the ability to actually visually see what's in front of you, to be able to make that gamified and enjoyable for your sales team, to use that to kind of encourage certain types of behavior. And of course, to have that internal comms element, which is a new thing that's really bloomed over the last few years, to allow for all of those different moving parts to come together. It's been an absolute pleasure to share this live with you, Simon, and with you, Aurel. And hopefully it isn't the last that we see of each other. So I'm sure we'll probably pop on more of these in the future. Everybody, if you enjoyed this session, if you've got questions for Simon, if you've got questions for Aurel or myself, I'm assuming the best place to find us all is probably on LinkedIn. But we'll share we'll share our details with everybody post this event. And thanks so much for your time, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having us, David.
Cheers, guys. Likewise.
Bye, everybody.